arrived at the clean room. Claps from the audience in the background there. Very excited to have this back on the ground. And in just a few moments, team members will approach. A very excited celebration. Great to have it on the ground. And this is the last step of the process for today's events, getting that SRC in the clean room. In just a few moments, you'll see team members approaching and beginning to unwrap the gift within. You can see our first team members walking up with that gas mask on. This is once again for team member safety, just to make sure that the operations are continuing nominally, that there are no possible outgassing from the batteries within. The rest of the team will wait for this initial safety assessment before making their approach. And there was some assistance for this step of the process from our team members out in the field. When they bagged the SRC.
Recovery operations. The SRC has been delivered to the clean room facility and is being prepared to transfer into the clean room.
So Zoe is removing the cargo netting now, and she's going to look at those X marks, those tape markers there. They're capped on tape that the team out in the field actually placed on that thermal blanketing. They let her know exactly where the air vents are, the gas vents on the SRC. So she doesn't have to unwrap the whole thing. She can just unwrap that small part and take her gas readings just to make sure that we're not outgassing anything from the batteries within. She'll take, once again, some thermal measurements just to make sure we're at safe operational temperatures. We don't anticipate any kind of additional heating on that SRC. You can see her opening up ever so slightly that thermal blanketing right at that capped on tape. Taking her readings. You can see another layer of that thermal blanketing there, and then the SRC is safely stored within. She's further unwrapping the SRC. There is additional thermal blanketing. You can see there's a couple layers. There's 2 layers of the thermal blanketing and then the tarp over top everything. She just needs to access that interior part and take her gas reading. You can see her with the instrument now taking initial thermal temperature reading. A nod of the head there. Looks like everything is nominal. And she'll take a gas reading here. You can hear the helicopters buzzing overhead here. The rest of our recovery team just shortly, a few minutes ago, landed nearby. And as we speak, on the other side of where Zoe is right now, there are team members preparing the clean room for the last leg of the recovery operations, getting that SRC inside the clean room and beginning the process of extracting that sample canister from within. Zoe continues to assess the situation here for safety. She is beckoning for her team to come over. It seems like it is safe for the recovery operations to continue, and 2 more team members will be joining her to assist with this next step of the operation. And here come a few more team members as well. Approaching now is Rich Witherspoon, who's been overseeing a lot of the operations out here at Dugway. There's been a number of rehearsals. We have a ground view now. Zoe is cleared to take off her gas mask. Big smile, very excited to get that SRC back here. It appears to be safe to continue the next step of the operations, getting that sample return capsule in the clean room. She's putting away her thermal protecting gloves. The rest of the team is there, ready to begin actually getting the SRC unwrapped and onto a small cart that will be rolled over in just a few seconds. Rich just giving the team an update on the status here. They do these team huddles just to make sure everyone's on the same page with the recovery operations. It is always simultaneous action. Everything is perfectly coordinated like a ballet dance. Especially once they get in the clean room, you'll see some of those operations. They are very well choreographed. And you can see they are bagging it up just a little bit more before they do this next step of the operation of actually lifting it up onto the cart that will then be wheeled into the clean room. Everything has really been thought out in advance, down to the actual material of the gloves the team members are to use in actually handling this sample return capsule. Nylon 6 is a polymer which is very similar to a protein, and so when nylon gets wet, hydrolyzes, it breaks up and releases a compound called epsilon aminocaproic acid that can be seen in some meteorites. So in order to distinguish between the chemistry that we see on Bennu and the chemistry that we see on nylon degradation, we need to make sure that these sorts of classes of compounds are kept away from the sample. So nylon gloves are not to be used. The gloves you see the team members wearing are made out of nitrile, which is safe to be used. And you can see 2 of our team members carrying that sample return capsule over to our clean room, our camera crew following behind, documenting this whole process. And you can see that cart in the background there. This is to help the team wheel the SRC into the clean room. That big metal door there will be open for just a few moments, and the team will wait just for the dust to settle. It'll kick up a little bit of dust, so they want to wait for that to settle and be visually clean, is the way the team describes it, before they continue to wheel that SRC in further, removing the tarp covering that thermal blanketing protective layer of the SRC. And you can see on the other side of the door, the team members for the clean room team are waiting to acquire that SRC within. And one big lift, all 4 members really digging down underneath there, getting that SRC up onto that fixture. A bit of a heavy lift, you can see. And we have it successfully on there. There's some padding protecting that SRC as it rests lightly. You can see the white padding underneath the SRC. In just a few moments, teams will await clearance to open those gates, open that door, and get the SRC inside the clean room, getting it on that nitrogen purge. Just a few moments later, a knock on the door, and there it is. The clean room door is opening up. Our Johnson team on the other side waiting for their precious cargo to arrive, and it is wheeled into the door. We have the SRC inside. Just sitting outside the clean room, you can see at the left of your screen with the NASA meatball and the OSIRIS insignia. That is our portable clean room that has been set up here at Dugway for the sole purpose of this part of the operation. This last step of the process of getting the SRC opened up, accessing the sample canister within, getting it on a nitrogen purge, and then actually tomorrow morning, we'll have a C-17 cargo plane flying this precious cargo down to the Johnson Space Center. At the Johnson Space Center, they've actually built a custom clean room for the OSIRIS-REx Bennu samples. As I mentioned earlier, they're going to be joining a historic collection that also includes samples from the Apollo program that were collected at the surface of the moon, as well as samples from Stardust and Genesis, both of which actually landed here in the Utah Test and Training Range a number of years ago, and also some Antarctic meteorites. We will not actually be opening up the sample canister today, so that we'll actually have to wait just a few days, so the team will have to be patient still as they wait for the official opening of the sample canister. But what you're seeing now, a bunch of team members will lift up the SRC for our curation team to reach underneath, scrape off any kind of dirt, and place it back on to our carrying fixture here. All of these samples will then be looked at as well. Any kind of environmental samples that potentially came in contact with our SRC are of interest to the Johnson team, so all of that will be documented for later as the team continues to shed the thermal blanketing layers that were protecting our SRC on its journey. On the long line, you can see a couple team members looking through the windows of the clean room, waiting for their part of the process to kick off as they get the SRC wheeled in. We get a nice close-up view of the SRC here. You can really see how charred it is from that entry into Earth's atmosphere. That is the back shield that you're seeing of the SRC, and the top part there has been sealed off. That is actually where the parachute was deployed from. See, there's that yellowish orange seal that was placed on top there where the parachute disconnected from the SRC. A brief team huddle here as they walk through the next step of the operation, making sure everyone is on the same page here as they will lift up the SRC ever so slightly, and the team has these brush tools. You can see one of our curators carrying one in her right hand there. They'll lift up the SRC and she's going to scrape off any dirt from the Utah desert that was on the bottom. That will actually then be certainly of interest to the curation team as they begin to analyze the sample we got back. You can see they're giving it a little brush. Very charred surface of that SRC. That metallic portion below is the heat shield, which protected our sample on its journey through Earth's atmosphere to the Utah Test and Training Range. And you'll see a lift of that SRC for team members to access underneath, checking for any dirt. It doesn't look like we really had any develop. And this is actually great because what happened was, since the soil was so damp today, we had a little bit of moisture. It was actually a much softer landing, so not as much dust really caked on that SRC. It landed perfectly on the surface of the Utah desert. They're going to place this back down again. Seems like their operations are going perfectly according to plan here. They'll do another lift on the other side just so they can access where the team members were previously holding. And then if all looks good, they will clear this to be wheeled into the clean room. And really just backing up and thinking about this entire journey from where we started this morning. Right before, maybe about 4 hours before we kicked off our broadcast, the team at Lockheed Martin gave the go to release the SRC that you see right here from the main OSIRIS-REx spacecraft. It detached from that spacecraft on its 4-hour solo journey. There's nothing we could do at that point as it entered into Earth's atmosphere, began the punishing entry, descent, and landing, which took us to the Utah Test and Training Range. Out in the field, teams worked to recover the sample, and they actually continued to take samples, environmental and air samples of the region around where we landed. We successfully bagged the sample return capsule in thermal blanketing that you see right there beneath the SRC, that plastic-looking material. We transported it successfully with our long line operations. Big thanks to our helicopter crew today for helping us get this sample return capsule to the clean room. A couple more lifts here you see, and they're going to remove that last layer of thermal blanketing, placing the SRC on its own without any layering onto our carrying fixture. You can see just how charred up those gloves look. A lot of that char from the heat shield getting off on their gloves. You can just see how dark it is. Really heating up. Initially, when we hit the Earth's atmosphere, we were at over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about half as hot as the surface of the sun. Quite warm. It's cooled off substantially, so obviously, as it's been transported throughout the day here, and is now just moments away from getting transported into our NASA clean room that you can see on the right of your screen. Team members are all gowned up, and inside that clean room there is a fixture dead center that this SRC will be placed on that will allow the team to be able to gather around and begin to open up this nesting doll protective layer, the SRC, to access our precious cargo, that sample canister within.